I thought it was, really, really professional, very unbiased, really provided good information. So these are exactly the kinds of questions that our patients have. We don't always have time to explain these kinds of questions. So I think it really provides a public service. I think it would do great in Florida because we have the same kind of questions. Our patients have the same kind of questions that you have. And I looked at the topics that you have on your Prairie Doc website, and really interesting topics done in a very professional manner. Obviously, you've researched everything. You've got the PDAs who, make sure that all the information is available. I really was impressed at how professional the show is, and I really, really terrific. I will come back anytime you want.
You've got to come up with what you enjoy doing and what you'll stick with doing. And that's the key to this whole thing. And if it isn't jogging, it can be walking in that area. But you take swimming and you take biking, and they're terrific. So you can come out with the end result of being fit with any of body's movement.
You can't feel sorry for yourself in the middle of the night when I wake up and I want to go to the bathroom, and I know I have to go through all of this, and I have to get on my little scooter, and I have to get myself there, and I want to think, poor me. I think, you wimp. You say an extra prayer for all those servicemen we have in this country who have injuries like this all the time and so much worse, and we don't give them enough credit. Mine is only inconvenience and discomfort. There's a real pain and serious injuries.
Every once in a while, my heart seems to be jumping out of my chest and I get a weak feeling and short of breath, the patient explained. When I listened with my stethoscope, his rhythm was different than the usual lub-dub foot tapping sounds, which are regular as a band marching through town on a summertime parade. Instead, his heart had the irregular rhythm of popping corn, chaotic and unpredictable, and I couldn't tap my foot to it. As predicted, the EKG showed the rhythm of atrial fibrillation, with the atrial rate running 300 to 400 beats a minute and the ventricular rhythm, chaotic as experts say, irregularly irregular, at about 150 beats per minute. Atrial fibrillation, or AFib, is the most common abnormal heart rhythm condition. It afflicts about 1% of the total population, more than 2 million people in the US, and 8% of all those older than 80 years of age. There are many causes for atrial fib, including long-standing high blood pressure, coronary artery disease, sleep apnea, too tight or too loose heart valves, too much or too little thyroid hormone, blood clots to the lung, and an inherited conduction system or wiring condition, excessive amounts of tobacco, coffee, alcohol, or amphetamine, a viral infection involving the heart, stress of any kind, or just an old, weak heart. There are two main reasons we need to do something about this rhythm abnormality. Most devastating can be the clots that can form in the atria since they're not emptying effectively, resulting in something like 10 to 25% of all the strokes that occur to the brain. Second, the ventricles are not efficient pumps when the atria are fibrillating, and even worse when they're running at about 150 beats per minute. So with atrial fib, we have to slow the heart rate down, thin the blood to prevent strokes, and sometimes even bring the rhythm back to normal when we can. While we're at it, physicians need to study why atrial fib happened in this particular case. It's a complex and interesting condition, and there are a lot of debate about what kind of blood thinners to prescribe, what kind of rhythm-controlled drugs to use, and when to use fancy surgery and pacemaker treatments. But the bottom line about atrial fib is that good treatment by your general or cardiology physician can prevent problems and allow a normal life, even with the heart rhythm as irregular as popping corn.
When it's environmental, my eyes just start to water and I sneeze and itchy, runny nose and stuff like that. But when it's almond allergy, I can kind of feel tingling in my throat and then tingling in my lips, and my lips are usually the first to start to swell, and then it goes into my throat and then my tongue, and it's just like a tingly, like tight sensation, I guess. And so that's when I know that that's coming on and I need to do something about it.
Oh, I think it's a wonderful, wonderful show. I try to pay attention to see what the topic's going to be coming up, and if it's something that I have some interest in, I definitely tune in, and I love to see how the discussion goes and hear other people's opinions on things, because it makes me more informed in what I do, and I think it helps the public. Yeah, I think it's really important to maintain an unbiased program, and this is a very unbiased program. I think everybody who comes on here is obviously very professional, does not have an agenda, and really is not trying to promote anything. And so I think the unbiased nature is really what makes the show so valuable and such a good information resource.
Baby boomers are coming of age, retirement age that is, and many are wondering what's going to happen. Starting about 9 months after soldiers returned home from World War II, there was a birth rate boom coming almost as a celebration of soldier survival. And this has profoundly affected our culture. Baby boomers, and I'm one of them, are those born from 1946 to 1964 during a successful post-war economy. This very large group of kids were the most privileged of all time. Often raised with a soldier-disciplined father and a not always happy work-at-home mother, we grew up watching too much TV, listening on transistor radios to Beach Boys and Beatles, and facing a new and real threat of atomic warfare. Still, life was quite idyllic for boomers during those first 18 years. But after graduating from easy and perfect boomer high, we were slapped into reality by the draft, Vietnam, and a newly realized inequality happening between sexes and races. This generation, often labeled as one of sex, drugs, and rock and roll, grew into an angry, government-distrusting counterculture that fought for social justice, for causes like feminism, civil rights, and the Vietnam War. These all reflect the boomer ethic, the right of self-direction. Well, it's no surprise this group has also achieved the most wealth. Accounting for 24% of the total U.S. population, boomers hold on to something like 80% of our country's wealth, account for 80% of all leisure travel, and dole out 50% of consumer spending. 76 million boomers in the U.S. are a huge cultural demographic. Like a pig swallowed by a python, the big bump is moving through the snake and is now coming to retirement age. As we become very elderly, sick, and disabled, there will be a smaller cadre of youth to care for us. Will we become a huge societal burden? First of all, the elderly are usually not that burdensome. Research finds 75% of those aged 85 or older still drive. 70% are not depressed, 60% do not experience significant memory loss, and on average, the elderly is as happy as any age group. When boomers turn 85, although potentially a demanding group, I predict we will find the resources to care for those who need it, and some might still be active enough to even physically help. More importantly, most boomers will have an advanced directive, bypassing futile efforts and reducing the risk for a prolonged, expensive, and painful death. And in these next years, as boomers have more time on their hands, expect intolerance to social injustice and an increasing demand for the privilege of self-direction.
The goal of the Seniors to Seniors program is just to place wonderful animals with wonderful people. Senior animals can be harder to adopt out, not always, but sometimes, and they're just wonderful animals that are in need of a second chance. And sometimes, especially for older humans, it's nice to get an older animal. You can see how big they are. You don't have to wonder how big they're going to get or what their personality is going to be like once they get older. What you see is what you get. It's especially nice if you don't have the patience. I don't have the patience for potty training and chewing and kittens knocking pictures off the walls and just the high energy youth stage of puppies and kittens. They can still be wonderful companions. Like Winnie here would still love to go for a walk, but she doesn't have to be jogged 5 miles a day like one of my dogs. Just a really nice way to place wonderful animals that are usually already house trained, already worked through all those young issues with people who want a pet, a companion, someone to spend their day with.
All throughout my life, she's been my mom, I've been her kid, and we've had that role. And that has shifted a lot. She'll often refer to me as mother, and in a joking way, of course. But I think that's one of the ways that we are successful in our relationship now, is she's been able to understand that because of how her memory is right now, there are certain things she needs help with, and I'm here to help her. And so she's willing to let me make decisions and do things for her.
A heart-healthy diet typically focuses on foods high in fiber, low in salt, and also that contain low amounts of saturated fat. A Mediterranean diet is an excellent example and guide to follow for a heart-healthy diet. The base of the Mediterranean diet contains high-fiber, plant-based foods, such as fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and legumes. These will help maintain your cholesterol at a low level and also help with weight management. Make sure you're choosing lean proteins and varying them throughout the week to include at least 2 servings of fish. Limit your saturated fats and include plenty of heart-healthy fats such as olive oil and canola oil. And last but not least, use herbs and other spices to season your food to cut down on the salt. Today we're going to make a fresh black bean salsa, which is a recipe low in fat, low in salt, and high in fiber. First, we're going to cut some vegetables. We're going to cut onions, peppers, tomatoes, cilantro, and really any other vegetable that you might enjoy. Dice the vegetables into small pieces, and we're going to mix all of them in a bowl. We've already added some tomatoes, onions, and pepper. We're going to add more tomatoes, some green pepper to the red pepper we've already cut up, more onion to go along with the onion we've already prepared, some drained corn, a can of black beans that I've also drained, and some chopped cilantro for a little bit of extra flavor. This recipe is best if you let it sit in the refrigerator so the flavors will marinate overnight or at least for a few hours, but can be served as such as it is right now. You can serve it on a salad or with a piece of meat as a garnish. You also can serve it with chips. Today I actually baked a pita. You can take a whole grain pita, such as this. I brushed it with olive oil, cut it into small pinwheel shapes, and baked it for about 10 minutes. So it's a lower fat, healthier, more whole grain version than using a chip. And there you have a heart-healthy, high-fiber, whole grain snack, or something you could almost even make a meal out of.
I had to really learn that, like, when I couldn't control my body, what I really needed to control was my mind, because you have sometimes no control over your body and things happen. And so I think that what I had to, like, consciously recognize is, like, yeah, I was going through this hard thing that was difficult to understand, but other people are going through hard things too. And, like, the one thing that I can control is, like, how patient I am and kind of how I educate myself, the actions that I do I can still control.